Hello and welcome to this short video on how to get started with Webin-CLI in Windows 10. Webin-CLI is a piece of submission software available from ENA that you can use to submit various types of data, including read data, assemblies, metagenomic data, and a few other things. So we're going to start from the ENA Read the Docs pages. So if you're watching this video, you're probably already familiar with this, but if not, you can just Google something like ENA Read the Docs, and it should be the first thing that comes up. So once you get here, click on the General Guide to ENA Data Submission, and this is where you can start to get an introduction on how to submit data to ENA. Quite handy here is this table, which shows you what you can submit through the different submission routes. So if you're ever not sure what you can submit through Webin-CLI or one of the other options, then you can just look at this table. But to get to Webin-CLI, scroll down here and click on Webin-CLI Submission. And this is a page that gives an overview of how to use Webin-CLI, and is also where you can download the latest version of Webin-CLI. So we're going to do that now by clicking on this button here. This takes us to the GitHub page where the releases of ENA are made available, of Webin-CLI are made available, sorry. And if you just click on the jar here, and you should be able then to download Webin-CLI. So while that happens, I'm just going to quickly cover, you need Java installed to use Webin-CLI. Webin-CLI is written with Java and you need to have it available on your system in order to run the software. Most systems will come with Java installed already, but if you have any problems, then it may be because you don't have Java installed, or you don't have the appropriate version, 1.8 or newer, installed. And you also need to have the Java runtime environment installed. So we've tested Webin-CLI against version 1.8.0_202. So we recommend using something like this version. And again, if you have any problems using Webin-CLI, this might be why. Okay, so Webin-CLI has now finished downloading. We're going to keep it, not discard it. I've downloaded it to my downloads folder, which is the default location for most things that you download on Windows. If you've downloaded it to somewhere else, then the next part of this tutorial isn't going to work for you if you follow it exactly as I do it. So I do recommend moving it to the downloads folder if it's not already there. So to move on to the next part, hold down the Windows key and press R for Romeo, and this run interface comes up, and we're going to type in CMD and press enter, and up pops the command prompt. If you're not familiar with using this, it can be a little intimidating, but it's really just a different way to interact with the same files and folders that you're used to interacting with through Windows Explorer here. So all the files and folders that you're used to using can be accessed through this interface. And I'll just prove that to you. You can see what we have here is next to where it's waiting for our input, it says C users halt. So this is the directory that we're currently in. This is my personal user directory. So if we navigate here through Windows Explorer, C users halt, then you can see we have this selection of files and folders here. And if we type in the command dir for directory, then you'll see that the same files and folders are shown in this location here. So for example, you can see we have this .android file here, and we have it here as well. And this here, dir, indicates that this is a directory and not a file. So we want to go into the downloads folder because that's where we saved Webin-CLI. To do that in the command prompt, type cd for change directory, put in a space, and then type in downloads. And you can see that the downloads folder is down from where we are in C users halt. So if we press that, then you can see we haven't got an output, but the prompt now includes the word downloads to indicate that that's where we are. And if we type dir again, then you can see that we get a different output because we're in the downloads folder, and what we have is the Webin-CLI jar that we downloaded. So to actually run this, we're going to need to use Java, and this is where you may encounter errors with your Java version if you have any. So if you have problems getting this to run, please do look into what version of Java you have. And the way you can do that is by typing Java space dash version. And after a moment, it should output some information for you, and you can hopefully use this to start to diagnose whether your Java version may be the wrong version. To actually run Webin-CLI, we're going to type Java again, and this time we'll put in a hyphen and then jar. So this is going to run the Java program, and it's going to tell it to expect a jar file, which is what this is here. So this is just us telling the computer that we want to run Java and telling Java that we want it to run a jar file for us. So if we then add in the name of the jar file, which is webin-cli-3.0.1.jar, and we press enter, then what we're hoping to get is this output here. Now you can see it says error, which isn't usually a good thing, but in this case that's what we would expect to see. This error message comes from Webin-CLI. This is Webin-CLI letting us know that we haven't given it all the information that it needs. So this is expected for now. We need to add more things onto this command in order to complete a submission. It's also come up with this bit of info here saying that we can use the help option to see all command line options. So that's something you might like to do. To do that, you can press the up arrow on your keyboard to bring back the command that you saw a moment ago, or you can just type it again, whatever you prefer, and then add in a space and type in help. And you can see this time we get a larger and different output. And this is just giving us some information on the sorts of options that we can include. Now I'm just going to highlight a few of them. Most of these you don't need, but there are a few options that you always have to use to complete a submission. The first of these is the context option. So this is telling Webin-CLI what type of submission you're doing. Is it a genome? Is it a transcriptome? Is it a short piece of assembled sequence? Is it reads? Is it taxonomic reference set? You have to tell Webin-CLI which of these it is so that it knows which validator to use and how to validate what's coming in. Obviously the criteria you use to validate a genome are very different than the criteria you use to validate a set of read data. You always have to use the manifest option. So the manifest is just a simple text file that describes whatever it is that you're submitting. So it will include the study and sample metadata that the submission needs to refer to. It will include the names of the files that you're actually submitting. So, maybe you're submitting some FASTQ files. They will be named in the manifest file, which is obviously very important. You always have to give a username and password. So you will likely have already registered a user account by the time you come to use Webin-CLI. But if not, there'll be a link in the description of this video on where you can go to register your user account. So we've got the context, the manifest, the username and password. We also have to give one of these two options here. So the submit option will instruct Webin-CLI to validate, upload and submit whatever is described in your manifest file. If you're not quite ready to do that, but you would like to know if the submission that you have prepared is valid and in a good condition, then you can just use the validate option. And this will run through the process of validating whatever it is you've given to Webin-CLI, and at the end it will just tell you whether your submission is valid or not, but it won't actually upload your files or submit them to ENA. So to put this all together then, a complete Webin-CLI command would look something like java-jar webin, and I'm going to press the tab key to auto-complete this. So we would give the context. Let's imagine we're submitting some reads. We would need to give it manifest, and once we did this, Webin-CLI would look for a manifest file in this directory here. There isn't one, but we can imagine there is one and give it a name, which would be something like manifest.txt. We have to give our username, which would be a Webin account username. They look like Webin dash and then a series of numbers. We would have to give our password, which we would have defined, and then we might give it the validate option. And this command wouldn't work because, of course, it doesn't use a real username and password, and it doesn't use a manifest. But this is a complete Webin-CLI command that you could use to submit a set of reads if they were described in this manifest file and if you gave it your username and password. So that's as far as we're going to go with this for today. Hopefully this has been helpful in allowing you to get started with Webin-CLI. Any errors that there are with your submission will be described in error reports, so please do pay attention to those as you complete your submissions with us. As always, you can contact our help desk if you have any problems, and we will try to help you through those as best we can, and there'll be a link to the support form in the description of this video. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope this has been helpful.